Hi everyone, welcome back to another Matlab tutorial. In the last tutorial we talked about logic and how to create an if statement and that type of branch construct to be able to ask Matlab a question, have it go a different path based on some conditional logic. The other construct we're going to look at is known as a switch construct. And ultimately the way that we set it up is very similar to how we set up an if statement. There's a switch at the very beginning, that's the keyword, and each time you have the word switch, there must be an end statement. In the if statement, we use something called else if or else, where in the switch construct we use case or otherwise. But it's all the same. There's some type of expression that the case needs to meet, and if it is met, it will follow the statements underneath. If it doesn't, it will check the next one. And if it doesn't meet any of them, then we have otherwise. In other words, none of these cases were met, so we're going to follow the statements under the otherwise problem. Typically, a switch statement is used over an if statement, depending on the type of data that you're analyzing. The if statement is very good at analyzing numbers. Is this value greater than this value? Or is this value less than 2 pi? But what if we're dealing with words or text? Well, it might not be as easy to use an if statement. So the switch statement, in my opinion, is much more suited to dealing with this type of data. So if we look at the example, write a script to convert a quantity of length given in meters to the equivalent quantity in inches, foot, meters, or centimeters as specified by the user. So what would our pseudocode look like? Well, first we need two things from the user. We need to know what is the unit of length in meters and what do you want to convert meters into. So let's open up a Matlab. We'll create a new script and we're going to ask the user for information. So we'll say user length is equal to input, enter the length in meters. And then we'll say user con for user conversion. And we can say which unit do you want to convert to? And if you remember from our prior lectures regarding the input function, Matlab is always going to assume that the data being entered is going to be type double or a number or an array. In the event that we want to input a different type of data, such as text, it's important for us to tell Matlab that this data is a string. And we do that by adding a second input to this input function. The second input being apostrophe s apostrophe. It tells Matlab that the data coming in to this variable is likely going to be a string or text. So now we have the data from the user. We know the length in meters. We know what unit we want to convert that length to. Now we have to create our switch construct. Now, what comes right after switch? Because it's not a logical expression. We're not asking Matlab to make a decision for us right here. We're asking Matlab which variable could be the one that changes. Well, in this example, it's user con. User con could be in feet or inches or millimeters or centimeters. So we want to switch that variable. All we have to do is put the variable name there and it will tell Matlab, I want you to look at the response from the user, what was inputted, and tell me what the value was. And the way that we do that is with our cases. So case 1 could be inches. Case 2 could be feet. Case 3 could be millimeters. Case 4 could be centimeters. And we could have an otherwise. And at the end, we can put end. So within each one of these cases, though, we need to go back and add what we want MATLAB to do if it meets that case. So we can say for case inches, and I don't know if I remember what the calculation is for going from meters to inches, but I think we can figure it out. So we can say that the output is equal to the user length, and then we can multiply it by 100 to get to centimeters, and then we can divide it by 2.54 to get to inches. I think it looks something like that. Well, what about feet? Feet should be very similar. It's going to be user length times 100 divided by 2.54, but then divided by 12 as well. So we can add a 12 here. What if it's millimeters? Well, that one's a little bit easier. It's just the user length multiplied by 1,000. And the centimeters will be the user length multiplied by 100. Otherwise, we might display incorrect unit entered. And then at the end, we can say fprintf and we can say percent 7.2f meters is equal to percent 7.2f and percent s. If we want to put in the string, we can say something like user length and then out and then user con. And let's see how that looks. We can clear what we had in the workspace before, or in the command window. We can save this as switch example. Say enter the length in meters, we can say it's 2.16 meters. Which unit do you want to convert to? Well, let's say inches. We'll just put IN. Then we can say 2.16 meters is equal to 85.04 inches. Great, it works. I haven't done the math on a calculator on the side, but that looks like it's probably about right. Now, you might be asking, well, what if the user types capital I, capital N, instead of IN? Well, yeah, MATLAB is pretty specific, so we do have an option here if we want to give the user a little bit more freedom. Let's try this again, and we'll purposely put in an error or a value that doesn't meet any of the cases. Let's say length in meters is 2.16, and we're going to do capital IN. It's going to come back and say incorrect unit is entered. Now, this is a leftover from what was in the workspace already, but if we clear that and do it again, I will show you that that won't come up this time. Yeah, incorrect unit entered. We have a problem. And it's not even looking for or finding the variable out because it didn't come here. So how can we give the user a little bit more freedom? Well, in each one of these cases, if we have more than one option, we can circle them in squiggly brackets. So we can say, give them the option of a capital IN, or give them the option of both caps, or maybe inches, or IN period. There's a lot of different options that we can put in here. And we can go back and do the same thing for feet and millimeters and centimeters, and it just gives the user a little bit of flexibility if they don't know exactly how you want it inputted. So it might look something like this. And in a few weeks, we can talk about this error function that you have here.